Steadily it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, back with another video. This is a stunner of a car. Stick with me to the end, and I'll tell you what I believe it will sell for. Now, you got to keep in mind, recently I did a review on this 63, and my guess was $130,000 to $140,000, and it came in at $132,000. So I have been accurate in the past, and I just love talking about these cars. As many of you know, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Here we have a 63 Lincoln Continental convertible, and as I said, kind of a little spoiler alert, this is a very, very nice car in my opinion. Certainly a stunner and a very unique opportunity for someone to own really kind of a piece of history. But the title says, one of the spoilers, it is a single family owned Lincoln Continental convertible, ermine white, great interior color, in my opinion, one of my favorite colors. Let's take a look, a little deeper dive, if you will. So we can see here the front three-quarter shot. It has the factory wheel covers, aka hubcaps. We do see that it has the dealer add-on, which was the little door molding here, the door guards, if you will. And, of course, in 63, as I've reinforced, the antenna moves from the back to the front. We can see the very elegant 63 grille. And as we've kind of broken down on this channel and through Lincoln Addict podcasts in the past, many folks regard the 61 through 63 their favorites, with the curved glass, just the elegance of these cars. So a 63 certainly is one of the most sought-after Lincolns of this era. This was purchased by the seller's father in Oakland, California. Hence, you're going to see that it has a 52 DSO, Destination Sales Office. Of course, it kind of goes through the normal information, a 430 V8, the powered soft top, obviously, and the 14-inch wheel covers and 14-inch wheels. They went to 15s in 64. Of course, this is an air-conditioned car. It does come with a California title. The car was ermine white, which is a very, I think, classy color, the white color, if you will. It was repainted 31 years ago. I love these cars that over the course of time, they, had a respray, if you will, is kind of what they referred to them back in the day. And, it just reinforces it's not really kind of a lipstick job or something that was recently done. Not saying that a recent paint job can't be good. They can often be great, but this is kind of a true original car, in my opinion, based upon everything that we can see. You could see here just this kind of the side shot. It's got the narrow band white wall tire, which is key for that era. Of course, after 61, they went away with the wider whites. Of course, that's a preference to most, but I think most people are going to want more of the factory style correct white wall, which you can see here. What we can see from the interior is, again, if you've been following this channel, I love those blues, whether it's a powder blue or kind of almost a bluish silver here with this interior. I love the authenticity of the originality of these seats, kind of with those cracks. And over the course of time, the leather in these cars will crack, depending on, where they're stored and how much leather, stuff is applied to the seats and to the surfaces and things like that. But, this is not uncommon to have seats kind of looking like this. Certainly, I would keep them as is. A lot of people would opt to go with kind of like Wallace, if you will, and do the newer seat covers. So that's a personal preference. What we can see here is, again, just the elegance of 63. Really love just the interiors in these cars. Of course, with AC, you see the vents here and some of that kind of the brushed look pieces around the dash. You've got the three pods for the gauges in the standard, of course, steering wheel. This is a 45,000-mile car. The seller does chime in. He is active in the comments, which is fantastic. And he reinforces that someone asked if it's original mileage. And, of course, he does reinforce that. What we can see here, we'll look at some more photos. The Mel 430, which is Mercury Edsel Lincoln. What stands out, of course, is it is an AC car. It is a 3-port fuel pump, which is fantastic. And we can see that at some point the coil was relocated. They can be a pain in the you-know-what to service because in 61 through 63, 61 through 65, they are mounted up underneath the expansion tank, and it's a beast to get to. And typically you don't have to get to them, but when they need to be changed, they're a pain. So oftentimes folks like myself will use the 66 and 67 bracket to move it up in this area. It looks like here it just has the mount is moved up here on the AC bracket. So this certainly is something that I would welcome, and it's nice to see that someone did it here. I can see that there is no insulation on the fuel lines coming here that come out of this front apron and over. Certainly this is being very picky. There is a factory kind of insulation that you'll often see, and I think I commented about that on a video the other day. Really the key here is just in different climates, these cars can experience vapor lock. It's not as frequent when you have the correct 3-port fuel pump. This also has the radiator shroud, being that it's an air-conditioned car, so more than likely they haven't experienced that challenge at all. But certainly you'll look at a lot of these Lincolns and you'll see kind of that factory. I don't even know if I would call it insulation. It kind of is, but I don't really know how much it really does, 60 years later. So very, very minor in the grand scheme of things. Up underneath this car is fantastic. Certainly everything that we can see in some of these photos, super nice, super clean, cleaner than most of these Lincolns that I see. Here we can see the door tag, VIN plate, if you will. And what we see, this is great that Bring a Trailer continues to, obtain this information because it really helps paint the picture. Bring a Trailer, of course, breaks all this down. 74A is the convertible. Ermine white is the M code. 82 is the blue leather. We know that B, so is the second letter in the alphabet. That would indicate the month, which is February. And the number 14 indicates the date, which again, you can certainly see here from a very nice door plate. So this would have been built February 14th of 1963 for the 63 model year. 52, which is a key code here, the destination sales office, or some folks, I think destination sales ordering. Either way, 52 is key. It's a Los Angeles, which reinforces the family's always been in or around that area. And then the 1 and 4, as I always mention, is pretty standard. The seller did recently, and this is fantastic with Bring a Trailer. Of course, you've got the activeness in the commenting section. He goes here to show that the auto drops are working. This is fantastic. This is another reinforcement on just what a nice car this is. Oftentimes the auto drops are not working. This is a convertible only feature from the factory. And really what that does is, if you're new to the channel, when you push this button in to open the door and you start to open it, this drops just as you saw. And what it does is allows for when it's shut, the window goes back up. Not only does it seal at the top of the window against this weather strip here, but it also, the front of this seals against the front window. So the rear convertible glass in 61 through 65 is slightly different than the sedan glass, and it's because there's no pillar here. And what that does is when this glass goes up, again, it's a nice seal from the front of this glass here where I'm pointing to the back of the rear glass, or back of the front glass, if that makes sense. So gets a little confusing, but I think you know what I mean. When I look through these photos, I can tell you, again, a stunning car. Certainly, if I didn't already have two convertibles, I would probably try to convince myself to purchase this car. Not so much that it's not a nice car at all, just, to spend the money and make it happen. These cars, 63 is one of my favorite years. I love 64, 65, but certainly this car to me is one of the nicer ones that we've seen in a very long time. The seller I'll show you, he had mentioned there was a taillight little crack in one of the lenses. I don't know that I saw it in the photos, but he did change it out with an NOS that they had sitting for about 10 years. I haven't gotten to the podcast episode yet where I talk about the 62 or the 63 aesthetics, but in 63, the deck lid is enhanced a little bit to allow for a little bit more luggage room. And that's what you can kind of see how the shape is a little bit different on these deck lids. So that's always something I thought was kind of cool and unique to 63. Of course, this rear bezel area here, the trim, this is, obviously different in 61, 2, and 3, and I really like the elegance of it in the 63 models. It has the black plates, so the old school California black and gold, which my wife would like that. She's a Steelers fan. For those that didn't know, someone did ask about the window. He said that they would always roll it down with a towel, and I think that's just a cool thing. Even when the top is up on these cars, it's nice because you've got the no B pillar, but I've driven my car with the top up and the window. I haven't really talked a lot about this, but you can unzip this window at the top, and what they've done here is they've kind of rolled it up with a towel, and this allows for kind of almost like a roll down back window, if you will, like a breezeway type window. If you have all the windows down, maybe it's a nice day but you want to have the top up, it's kind of a cool way, just a little bit different way to cruise, if you will. We can see it does have the bias ply tires. There are companies, I think like Coker, that makes a newer style radial, I believe, that looks like a bias ply. People love the bias ply tires, I think mostly for the look. It kind of gives it that old school look and feel. Some folks aren't always happy with the drivability with bias plies. My 64 came with bias plies, and of course I had a center link that I had to change, which is a steering component, which is typical in these cars, but I ended up going with radials, but I can appreciate this look, and certainly that's a choice. If I ever did own this car and I changed it out to radials, I would keep the bias plies, and you could always change them if you're going to shows or you want that look for a photo shoot or something to that effect. But again, that's a kind of a personal preference. These photos are showing just how nice the Brightwork is, if you will, on this car. Oftentimes you can get in here and polish this, and it usually isn't in this nice a condition on a Survivor car, especially on top of these kind of eyebrows, if you will, over each. This is factory. Over each of the headlights, a lot of times it just kind of tarnishes and some of the pot metal and things like that. But this car, again, is super nice. Now, the interior, again, we did see it was technically blue from the factory. I love the color. I could see where someone, let's say you were a fan of black or a tuxedo interior, this is a car you could potentially get, dare I say, change the interior. It's not something I would personally do, but that is something that you could do if you just were not a fan of blue. Some of the money shots here kind of showing the rear suicide doors. You can see there the rear auto drops are down. Love the carpet, the originality. We can see it has the original heel pad. And just a lot of good photos here kind of showing the light, the incandescent bulbs in there. You can see the ones also working for the steering column, which, those can be a pain to change if they're not working. Again, you've got the night and day photos, which is fantastic. I'm going through these a little quick. Keep in mind, I'm trying to keep these videos a little bit more streamlined, but just know that you can click the link in my description or just go on Bring a Trailer and search Lincoln Continental if you want to kind of go see more. What we can see here, again, interior, I love the original interior. I personally would never change it. It looks great. Here we can see a very important shot kind of with the top in the trunk. This allows us to see underneath what this is often referred to as the package tray. Although you really, I don't know where that term ever really came from. I don't know how many packages you could really put on top of it, but a lot of times these are kind of rusted out, or even if they're not rusted out, there's, a little bit of surface rust and things going on. Certainly not with this car. Again, it's that nice. We could see in the trunk all of the original pieces here that cover where all the relay bank is at. And some of these pieces that are often long gone on these Lincolns. And it's very cool to see such originality on this car. Personally, going through a car like this, I always kind of go, man, I don't know how someone could sell it. It's so nice. Now, don't be alarmed here underneath the deck lid. You start to see a little bit of this. This is standard. If you've been watching the channel, you kind of know the adhesive that they used on not only the deck lids, but the hoods as well will tend to hold a little bit of moisture, even in dry climate areas like California. So, this to me looks really good. It could be far worse, and I don't see any challenges with that. Here you can see a lot of folks have found there's a couple places that sell this different insulation, and they'll replace this. A lot of times the original stuff has fallen or looks terrible. This looks good, and it's nice that they changed it. They've kind of put in some a little bit of money and time over the course of the years to keep this car up. One other thing in here, I'm not a huge I would say purist when it comes to these tower clamps, but I know a lot of people like my friend Tony, they appreciate seeing the original clamps versus the newer style clamps. So when you look at this, for those that aren't familiar, these clamps in here, these are, I believe, referred to as tower clamps, and they're kind of the original ones. And, if you were at an LCOC event, Lincoln Continental Owners Club, that would be something they were looking for. Underneath this car, I know you could look at this and go, wow, it's a little bit gritty. This is nothing compared to most of these Lincolns. A lot of times these cars leak, and they can get very nasty underneath them. This car to me is true to what I would want to see. It's not restored. A lot of these little pieces here underneath the car, they're almost like a rubber type, not weather stripping, but they're in different areas underneath the car up near the front fenders, and they've got these little factory clips in here. I always love seeing this because it kind of reinforces again that this car hasn't been tinkered with. It hasn't been taken apart. It shows the originality. Those will tend to tear over the course of time. We can see here again looking very nice underneath. A lot of times in different areas of the country, my 64 had undercoating on this, and a lot of it just scraped off, but it was very nice to have undercoating if a car came from a bad weather area of the country. But, like what you can see here again is it's just kind of untouched. It's very nice, and this is what I would want personally if I was looking to get into another convertible. We can see here, it doesn't look like there's any leaks. This is the crank-mounted power steering pump, which is a very unique thing on these cars. I would recommend you only use Type F in those systems. That's something that John Cashman, the great, has always reinforced. Presumably the seller at a younger age, or possibly his father. Super cool photo. Love the fact that they put a little bit of the lineage in here in terms of the old photos. Here you can see July of 67, and there's the car there, kind of reinforcing, backing up the fact that, hey, this is a one family-owned car. I believe this was the taillight lens, and this was just showing how nice the Brightwork is. And he had mentioned in the comment back to me that a lot of times you can't see underneath some of these areas. So, taking it apart and seeing it kind of reinforced how nice it is. The seller is he's active in the comments. There's been a few good questions. For instance, this person said, are asked if the miles are original, and he responded with, my dad stopped driving the Lincoln except on special occasions when he started buying more exotic cars in 78. The tag on the side of the dash shows the service in 83 when the car had 38,000 miles. So this is also another thing, what I've used in the past with my 64, or excuse me, my 65, it had a few pieces of documentation when it was serviced over the course of time, like in 98, 99, and it showed the mileage. So like my car that's at 125,000-ish miles, I know for a fact it's not like 225,000 because there's a little bit of paperwork trail like there that shows it. Here are some shots of the plastic rear window. We always unzipped it and rolled it down with a towel, which again is kind of where I got the response from the individual. Someone asked about some of the gauges. He mentioned the clock was redone at one point, but didn't work for too long. There's a few more in here. And again, I put the first comment, and he did say, he responded to me with this: Lincoln Addict, when preparing the car for Bring a Trailer, I had to replace the right rear taillight lens. It had a crack that was small, but we had an NOS one waiting, and that was swapped out. Of course, the Bring a Trailer team then takes these photos and adds them to the gallery, which is fantastic. So, in my opinion, this car is going to go for $75,000 or more. Now, I personally think if I was a betting person, I would say 100,000 to 120. I really think it's that nice of a car. It has that original feel to it. These cars continue to go up. I do know the resto mods, they have their own place and they're hitting these record numbers. I totally understand. But my opinion is that these original cars are going to continue to go up because the more that cars are customized or the more that they're restored, the less survivor cars that are going to exist. So let me know what you think. I really wish the seller all the best. I easily think it's going to blow past 75, but my gut feeling is 100 to 115. But I think it's worth more than that. And certainly if this car sold for 132, you go, what's the difference? Well, this car had a full custom interior. It had some things, it had some money, additional money invested in it. But if it was me, I would rather have this car. Okay. And I would pay just as much for it. So 132, I could see easily. It was not in the Lincoln registry. I did submit it, and that's just a way for these cars to kind of be tracked. So I went ahead and submitted that. Let me know what you think. Thank you for the support. You can check out LincolnAddict.com to find ways to listen to my podcast. It's free, Lincoln Addict Podcast. Some of the newer episodes are available here on YouTube. Take care, everyone. Have a safe weekend. Good luck. Single family owned 63 Lincoln Continental Convertible.